Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to focus and talk about anger. Because anger is one of those things that has been with me for a large portion of my life. And in recent years, it's been something that I've been able to use more constructively. I've been able to use it to get more of what I want in life and to move forward in life. But for a large portion of my life, anger really did have a stronghold on my existence. And if you're that person, if you're someone who you know that you deal with anger, you can recognize that you feel a lot of anger, and anger takes away from your happiness, and it's something that you feel is really taking over a large portion of your existence, then I want you to stay for this full video so that we can really talk about some insights in relationship to that and where that might be and why that might be impacting you this way. And also because I have a gift for you at the end. So let's get started. Now, I remember a client that I had, young man, nice young man, who came to receive services for psychiatry because they were dealing with a lot of anger, a lot of hardships that were increasing their anger. And one of the things that I do when I meet with clients is we do a thorough history. And upon doing that thorough history, it included going back to his earlier years to really think about, what his experiences were. And in his experiences, he had a father who was there, but who was abusive and who also showed a lot of anger. A mother who was there, but who wasn't emotionally available. In fact, neither of his parents were emotionally available. He saw a lot of violence in his home. And the big thing about that is that there was no outlet for him. There was no one checking in with him, helping him process these things, letting his voice be heard. He was just amongst this chaos. And what he found is that that's when he first started to develop some anger. And as he grew and got into adulthood, of course, these issues still had not been addressed, but anger became the way that he dealt with a lot of experiences because it was familiar. And by this point, it was more of a habit in terms of how to approach conflict, how to approach disappointment, how to approach communication. And so when we talk about anger in this way, one of the things that I really want to mention when we're talking about anger is really thinking about where our anger is coming from. Where is it that you first recall experiencing anger in a way that you really felt impacted you. And what I found with many people who I've treated, what I found in my own life is that those early experiences had a huge part to do with where my anger began to develop, because it was in those earlier years. And for many of you, I know it's those earlier years and throughout your life when you experience hurt, offenses, injustices that are not reconciled, that are not dealt with, that a lot of anger can come from that. And I think that that is a normal response when you've been done wrong, when wrong things and harmful, devastating experiences have happened in your life, when they're not dealt with. I think anger is an appropriate response. But I think what also can happen when these things are continual and they're not processed and dealt with is that we can start to function from a place of anger and have built up anger that begins to follow us throughout the course of our life. So I think when we are talking about anger, it's first really recognizing where it's coming from. When did this first start for you? If you feel like you have all this anger, you don't know why you're always angry, or you don't know why you respond with such anger, I would really start to search back to see, when did you notice that this became a way for you or an experience for you? Because when we have dealt with adversities that have really impacted us and haven't gotten healing from those experiences, we can begin to develop anger as a foundation in terms of how we sit in our emotional state. And then whatever is in our foundation is going to impact everything that's built on that foundation. So it's going to impact your relationships. It's going to impact your outlook. It's going to impact your way of connecting with yourself, this way of anger. Because it's something that should be expressed. It's something that should be able to be passed through you. It should be something where you can address issues, and when those issues are addressed, the anger subsides because things are being addressed and you're able to see an outcome that helps to correct some of the things that could have been painful and that were painful. But in many of our experiences, that's not what is happening. And so anger becomes this face of trauma for many people, and a way of being in life. When we talk about anger as well, we talk about the historical anger as I mentioned, the young man that I had treated in the past also saw anger in his home a lot. So it became a learned behavior, a recognizable behavior, because he had a father who expressed anger that way or expressed his emotions through anger. And that became a familiar way and a learned way to be. So we can also think about, and you can also think about people that you may have grown up with or who had a big impact in your raising and in raising you. And if you saw a lot of that kind of energy of anger in a way of communicating, because it can be now that it's like, okay, well, this is what I've seen my whole life, but now I want to create something different because you may see that anger is impacting so much of your life. Also, in the roots of anger can be generational. It's been found that unhealed trauma can stick with us through generations. And that is something that really takes recognizing, again, through your lineage, understanding where it comes from, because there are things that were not resolved for people before us. And we have the opportunity in our life to shift that way of coping and dealing with experiences to a different emotion, or utilizing that anger to be able to be a catalyst to get something better in this life experience or for this generation and for generations to come. So I think that one of the most first important things to know is where anger is coming from. And if we search back, we can definitely find experiences that could have been the start of how we started responding in this way. Keeping in mind that anger can also be something that impacts us and all of the people around us. So the same way that our experiences of anger came from somewhere else, when we start to recognize that our current anger can impact the people around us the same way, where they start carrying on anger based on their experiences with us, or their learned behavior through seeing how we are being, this can be motivators to say, okay, now I want to change this experience, change how I am in this way. And the question then might just be, a deeper why on what you can get from changing from responding in anger and being controlled or consumed by anger, why it would be important to shift. So like, where is this impacting you in your life when you look around? So delving deeper into the why in this is why anger impacts us this way. It's this built up emotion, this pinned up emotion that we're trying to manage. We're trying sometimes not to come off as explosive or to look at like a stereotype, for example, of an angry Black man, an angry Black woman. We try not to fall into those stereotypes, so we might pin this anger up, and we may also, having this type of experience in anger, also comes from the frustrations of our experiences being unaddressed. So now in your life is an opportunity to start addressing those things for yourself. The people who may have been the cause of some original hurt that really started anger coming on may not have done their job in ownership and responsibility, but now is a very important and life-defining moment for you to be able to start dealing with those experiences for yourself. People do let us down, in this world. Not everyone, but what many of us do have that experience of people letting us down. But we can be the person within our life who shows up for us. And that means to be able to now start addressing experiences that were never addressed and doing this for yourself. Because one of the things that also tends to happen is many of us will express our emotions of anger as a protective mechanism. If you've been mistreated or you really had to fight in your younger years to protect yourself, or you got violated because you were too young to really be able to fight someone who violated you in any type of way, that anger can now be something that you're using as a protective mechanism. But the thing is, there's a way to use anger, right? A lot of times, from many people's experience, and definitely in my past from my own experience, when I used anger as a protective mechanism, oftentimes I used it toward people where it wasn't necessary, and also it ended up hurting a lot of relationships. And if that's you, and you're someone who's dealing with a lot of pent-up anger and anger that comes out in certain ways, you may really be struggling in your relationships. It could be one of those things that is taken away from the joy of your current life, is that your relationships are suffering because of this anger. The anger could cause you to isolate from people because you don't trust, or you don't want to be enraged by other people, because other people can easily enrage some people when you have a lot of pent-up anger. It can impact your relationships because you might go off the handle. You might go from 0 to 100 in the matter of a disagreement that afterwards you may have a lot of regret. And it may be a regret that's happened so many times that it's really damaging the relationship. And isolation can come from that way too, because many people may start to move away from you. And that can be really hurtful. That can be really hard because your heart just wants to protect itself. But, your mind understands that it needs to protect itself in a way that comes off that may have worked in the past or may have been necessary at one point in your life, but in current relationships, it may not be the way. But then it's really understanding then what are the tools that I can use so that I can have a better experience with people that are around me, that I'm around, and that we have more of a harmonious relationship rather than one that's destructive. And so with that, really thinking about some ways, to be able to deal with this pent-up anger. So what are some of the things that can be done to help with anger? Well, the first one is acknowledging the source. So there's acknowledging where these things may have began to be an issue in your life. But then in your current life, when you are angry, to really also see what is it that's really making you angry about the situation, being able to have time to really think about this so that you can get an understanding of what are the things that tend to make you angry, or what is it about this situation that made you angry or that brought about anger, because that can be different for everyone. You can have a disagreement with someone, and it doesn't have to simply be that you disagreed that makes you angry. It could be that you feel like someone disregarded you or disregarded your thoughts or your concerns of a matter. And that could take you back to times where you were really disregarded, So it's really understanding what it is about the experience for you personally is it that caused anger to arise in you. And when you're doing that, it's also being able to be vulnerable. And that might look like initially finding people that you feel comfortable being vulnerable around, where your vulnerability isn't attacked. Your vulnerability is, at a point where at least the person or people are trying to understand. And it's a place where they can also be vulnerable. And if that's not a possibility for you right now, it's even being vulnerable with yourself. And that means just being able to be truthful with yourself in the moment that, you know, okay, I am feeling these emotions, and even exploring why that is. And when I say being truthful with yourself, I think that's really important, because for many of us, we are not even honest with ourselves. We try to give ourselves a different narrative that makes us feel better. Because sometimes truth can hurt, truth can be hard, but the truth is going to be the door that starts to crack open when you are looking to step out of a box that has kept you that you've been locked in, a room that you've been locked in, a cage that you've been locked in. When you start to have a truth with yourself, you can start to see that door opening so that you can come out of that locked up space and have other experiences. So having space where you can be vulnerable, and if you're not able to be vulnerable with people at this point right now, being able to be vulnerable with yourself, I know is a powerful approach to being able to really deal with anger. Also, I will also say that, you know, everything is energy. Our emotions are energy. This anger is an energy. If you think about it, when you get bubbled up with anger, you feel that energy. It's like sometimes you might want to blow your top off, or, you know, you might feel like the cartoon characters when they get really angry and the fire or whatever comes out of their head. Like, that's what I mean when I say blow your top off. Like, the anger could be so bubbled up in you that you feel like you could explode, you know, and that's energy. You know what I mean? Energy is in all things, and our anger is an energy. And so figuring out how to move that energy and let it move through you could be something that could be powerful too, so that it's not something that's pent up, that then the only one way is to explode at the intensity that the anger feels like at that moment, which many of us have done. If we're being honest, we have, and it's had poor consequences. So being able to have ways to allow energy to move through you. And I have a anger toolkit that I would really want to share with you. It's free. This toolkit is free, and it really gives you some creative ideas, easy to approach and fun ways to help anger to move through your system, so that you're not being pent up with it, that you're able to release it, and to be able to deal with things at not such an intense level. And so that anger toolkit link is going to be in my comments in the description section of this video. You can get it. I encourage you to get it. I encourage you to try new things if you're really feeling like anger has gotten a strong hold on you. I encourage you to try new things that can be a way to study yourself and see that this is something that's really helping me and impacting me to deal with things in a different way that are actually beneficial. And we won't know those things until we try new things. And that's what I am leaving with you today. Let me know in the comment section if you're dealing with anger, or if you have dealt with anger, what's been one way that has been helpful for you to move through that anger. And I say that because other people will see your comments and it may be helpful for them. I encourage you to also look in the comments to see if there's anything that's helpful for you. And I will be back next week for my next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and to share this video with someone that you feel is dealing with anger and could have some support around how to move through it. I'll see you all next week. Bye.